Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about mine. It was spectacular, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about today. MAGA Wars, man. It appears that there is a battle between MAGA supporters, the Trump supporters, and the hardcore leftists, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. We had a tragic shooting over the weekend out in Portland, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and how now all of a sudden, imagine the Democrats are worried about violence in the streets. What has changed? They hadn't been worried for basically a year now, but they're worried about it now, and we're going to expand upon that. And then California crazy, man. California is taking a serious move towards reparations for slavery, even though they weren't a slave state. But we're going to talk about that. And then you knew it was going to happen sooner or later. I thought it would be that hand sanitizer would be the leading cause of cancer or something. But now it is coming out that there is research they're worried about overuse of hand sanitizer may actually cause a superbug, and we'll get into that. But before we get into the meat of the stories, I got to tell you a couple things. One, about my weekend. Well, you know, some of you may be new to the show, and first of all, howdy, how are you? You're in the right place now. But I am a fish whisperer. This is my sidekick, Billy Bob Bass. I got a hat here that says "Make Fishing Great Again." I go fishing just about every weekend on a long-range charter boat that goes out about 100 miles in the Gulf of Mexico. And I recently was eligible to get back in the jackpot. They have jackpots for the largest fish in various categories. I used to do the video on them, and I kind of went for free, so I wasn't in the jackpot. Now I'm paying again. More about that another time, but I'm eligible for the jackpots, and I've been winning them. So what's better than winning one jackpot? How about all three, which is almost never done? Check out the pictures from the weekend. I caught a 50-pound amberjack, a 8-pound mango that you see me holding there. One of those is the captain. The guy in the red shirt is a crew member. And, of course, the bigger fish there is a 41-pound gag grouper, and we got a better picture of that, man. I have been on a roll. I thank the fishing gods for allowing me to have such a spectacular catch. Got a little posting of this on my John Martin Talks Facebook page. You'll see it. But I had a great weekend. I hope you did too. I know Donald Trump did, coming off of that convention. What a convention it was, and we'll talk a little bit of that as the stories unfold. But I also have to remind you of our giveaway. Yes, right here we have a giveaway, compliments of our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. It's an everyday carry pack, and it basically can carry anything you want, but it's specially designed to carry a concealed weapon. And you got these ditties up here that we got a picture of. All of this can be yours, no obligation. All you have to do is go into the show description. Doesn't matter where you're watching the show from. If you look above the video, there's going to be a description of our show, what we're talking about, and there's two links in there. One says John Martin Giveaway. Simply click on that link, follow the instructions, and one lucky listener will get this prize pack, I guarantee you. Compliments of the other link, which is our sponsorship link, Big Daddy Unlimited. Click on that if you want to help the show, help us expand. Yes, I will make a little money off of that, but you will get tremendous savings. The first thing is it's almost free to start, a free trial, 99 cents. You can't get much cheaper than that. After that, it's $10 a month, and you $4 comes to me. I'll just be upfront and serious and honest with you, but when you look at the savings you'll get on anything Second Amendment related, you'll make all of your fees back and then some, whether you buy on your first purchase of a handgun, ammunition, swag, or tactical gear like you've shown here. You can get it all. Literally thousands of items, factory direct price to you and shipped right to you go to Big Daddy Unlimited, the sponsorship link. One is a giveaway, no obligation. The other one's only a slight obligation. Check them both out in the description of our show. All right, let me get these old headsets adjusted here. Sometimes, with the dangers of live TV, I get a little squirrely. There's gremlins tugging at me back there. First story we're going to talk about comes from the Washington Post. Trump praises supporters amid deadly clashes with social justice demonstrators. So the Trump people are deadly clashes and the social justice demonstrators. Are there any real demonstrators out there? They're demonstrating how to throw a Molotov cocktail, how to burn down a building, the proper way to throw a brick. That kind of thing is in full display. But actually, social justice is anything but in display. President Donald Trump on Sunday amplified his call for federal forces to help subdue protesters in American cities, denouncing local Democratic leaders and fanning partisan tensions a day after a deadly clash between his supporters and social justice demonstrators in Portland, Oregon, underscored the threat of rising politically motivated violence. More than that is a mouthful. So let me get this straight. If you're a Trump supporter and something happens, it's violent. It's violence. But if you're an Antifa or a Black Lives Matter, a fascist organization in Antifa and a communist Marxist organization in Black Lives Matter, then it's what? Mostly peaceful? But Trump supporters, oh no, they're violent, man. They're violent. But Black Lives Matter, mostly peaceful. Mostly peaceful. Interesting how the dynamics of the way no prejudice in this media at all, right? Scenes of Trump supporters firing paint and pellet guns at protesters during a Trump cruise rally. Let me say off the bat, I am denouncing violence, period. But I understand the need to defend yourself. And, you have a right. Have we got cities like Portland? Have they literally now become no-go zones where if you have a different political view, you're not allowed to actually enter there? Don't people have the right to go forward no matter? Don't they have a right as an American citizen and a taxpayer who paid for the streets that are in Portland and everywhere else, United States of America? Don't they have a right to simply drive their vehicles down there with a Trump flag or a Trump sticker? Do they have to be accosted to do that? I mean, of course, Maxine Waters, you talk about starting violence or inciting a riot. Maxine Waters, like a year ago, basically said, hey, if you see somebody wearing a Trump sticker or a hat or having a Trump sticker, accost them, whether they're in a gas station, at a grocery store. Didn't she say that? You should challenge them, make them know that they're not welcome here. That kind of thing. So I guess Maxine Waters, a leading Democrat, has been setting the stage. Of course, she's not the only one, but I'm not advocating violence at all. But this stuff is inevitable. If you let one side just sit there and basically take over an American city, which is happening all over the country in Democrat-led cities, more on that in a moment, this kind of stuff is inevitable. It is predictable, easy to predict. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but I am having some major issue here with my headphones. Give me just a second. It may look squirrely, but I got a gremlin tugging on him like his life depends on it. But they call it a Trump cruise rally, boat parades, I guess. It's hard for the leftists to attack the boat parades, I suppose. Caravan through downtown Portland, a liberal bastion, you think, that has been the site of weeks of street demonstrations, raised the specter of the nation's summer of unrest. But I thought it was supposed to be a summer of love. Yeah, right. And whatever happened to love Trump's hate, that seems to have gone by the wayside, had entered a new phase in which the president's backers are rallying to defend business. Boy, they got to write a huge paragraph if it's a Trump backer, right? Defend businesses and fight back against Black Lives Matter and other groups talking about President Trump's labels as anarchists and terrorists. So President Trump has labeled Black Lives Matter and Antifa as anarchists and terrorists. Gee, I wonder where he ever got that idea. Could it be a picture like this where they literally have shields and helmets and they look like a uniformed military force? I mean, this is the armed wing of the Democratic Party. Or maybe this next picture we got here where you've got people literally standing on the cop cars and trying to destroy stuff. I mean, could it be that? I mean, look at that police car, man. That's Black Lives Matter, unless you happen to be in a police car. Or maybe this picture where you've got the Black Lives. I mean, does it show what's happening in the Summer of Love better than this picture right here? I mean, it is unbelievable. And you got people dressed up that look like ISIS out there, basically. So I wonder where in the world Donald Trump could have gotten the idea that these mostly peaceful demonstrators might actually be anarchists and terrorists. I don't know. I mean, you know, believe your lying eyes or not, right? One man thought to be a member of a pro-Trump group was shot and killed Saturday night during the Portland unrest. So Trump's supporter was killed. Now, we don't know if he was or not. He was wearing a hat. It wasn't a MAGA hat, but it was a red hat, which if it's red, you know, it's MAGA, right? But the Trump supporter was killed. If true, as the Democrats say, if true, I got to thinking, what would be the proper response? What would be if you're a Trump supporter and one of your compadres gets killed? What store should you loot? What would be number one on your list of looting? Maybe a Bass Pro? You know, I don't know. Are we going to get a Best Buy and a big screen TV? I mean, I'm going to loot the Bass Pro myself, man. I'm going to protest right now and go to the Bass Pro and get me one of them tracker boats or something, or maybe one of them four-wheelers or something like that. But what would be the proper store? Chime in on Facebook or YouTube. Spell it out, John Martin Talks. Check us out there. We're getting more subscribers every day. Need more views on there. We really appreciate it. But let me know what you think would be the proper store to loot if you are a Trump supporter. Because, you know, we've got to have an equal response. And you may not can open your store, not with a key, but with a brick, you know. You can't go to church, but you can loot. So if we're going to loot, I think we should target looting. And I'm not saying a Target store like in Minneapolis, but my guess is a Best Buy. I'm torn between a Best Buy, but I'm probably going with Bass Pro. Anyway, you tell me what would be the best store to loot and pillage if you are a MAGA hat wearing son of gun. You ever notice there's not a whole lot of MAGA hat wearing sons of guns looting anything? I don't know, man. Just kind of pointing that out. In tweeting a video of the caravan on the move, Trump called the participants great patriots. Oh my God. And the reaction marked a sharp contrast, they say, to his silence during a large and peaceful, at least they didn't say mostly peaceful, because when you ever hear the word mostly peaceful, somebody's dead. That's what it's saying. Certainly a building got burned. But contrast to his silence during a large and peaceful civil rights march on Friday in Washington that drew thousands to the National Mall, where some speakers denounced talking about President Trump's leadership. So let me get this straight. The president called people who support him great patriots, but was silent. He didn't say anything about people who denounced him and his leadership. You know, that's pretty radical, isn't it? I mean, Donald Trump is absolutely unhinged. He says that if you support him, you're a great patriot, and if you denounce him, he didn't say anything. But that makes him unhinged. Well, I can tell you what, if he's unhinged and we do what we need to do and vote that man back into office for 2020, 4 more years, man, it was good to hear that over Thursday night, wasn't it? 4 more years. If we get that actually and make them cry again like we did in 2016, Donald Trump will go from being unhinged to, when he's not having to run for re-election after he's got his second term, to being unleashed, baby. I am looking so forward to Donald Trump unleashed. It is unbelievable. You talk about draining the swamp. We can do it when Donald Trump is not only unhinged, but becomes unleashed. And you can make that happen by doing like I'm telling you all the time. Campaign for the man like he's 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people you see are going to put him over the top. That's what we need to do for Donald Trump. Cannot take anything for granted. I love it when you say Trump landslide, but please, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a Trump supporter, if you're not, then what the heck's wrong with you? But if you are, and you still got a chance to change your mind, believe me, Trump landslide, I love it, but we need to make sure we do our part and get out and vote, which is terrifying to Democrats. More on that in a moment. In a statement Sunday afternoon, Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden unequivocally condemned the Portland shooting and accused Trump of fanning the flames of hate and division in our society and using the politics of fear to whip up his supporters. I always like how you notice that Biden is in a statement. You rarely see a statement from Donald Trump unless it's a tweet, right? Most of the time, President Trump faces the cameras, takes questions, just tells you like it is. Do you ever really have to wonder what is on President Trump's mind? I mean, sometimes I wish we did. Sometimes I think he speaks off the cuff a bit too much. But overall, it's hard to complain about access to the president. What president in the past would stop and do a press conference impromptu while he's walking to the helicopter or answer those shouted questions at him? No presidents ever do that, man. Donald Trump does. He doesn't make a lot of statements. He actually talks to the American people. He's not afraid of much of anything. Maybe sometimes he should be. We might talk a little bit about that in a moment as well. But Joe Biden issues statements. Of course, we've heard from a statement that he's coming out of the bunker basement this weekend or this week to go to Pennsylvania, of all places. I wonder what he's going to do there. But it says here, Mr. Biden said in his statement, we must not become a country at war. And by the way, why is Biden doing just statements? Because he can't answer a question, certainly not a follow-up question. When was the last time, I hadn't said this in a while, but if I say it, it bears repeating. When was the last time that Joe Biden got what I call a follow-up question, which is very significant because the follow-up question is where you get the real answer if you're going to get one. These reporters asked Biden maybe a halfway tough question, most of them softballs. He gives whatever cockamamie answer he's got canned, and then they don't ask him, but what about this? And I'll point this out to you specifically in just a moment. But we must not, this is a statement from our fearless potential leader, Joe Biden, we must not become a country at war with ourselves, a country that accepts the killing of fellow Americans who do not agree with you. I agree with that. But it seems like the Trump supporter is the one in danger. A country that vows vengeance toward one another in that as Americans, that President Trump wants us to be. Sorry about this, but I am having all kind of issues with my headphones. They look a little squirrely, I know, but there's gremlins after me today. But that is an America that President Trump wants us to be, the America he believes we are. But Biden, it says Biden said this. No, Biden didn't say this at all. It was a statement. You don't even know if Biden actually even read the dadgum thing. Think about this. All you really need to understand is he's making a statement about violence, right? When he had the chance on national TV live with probably the biggest audience he's going to have maybe all year until he debates Donald Trump, if that actually happens, at the DNC itself, Democratic National Convention, there was not a mention of violence from Joe Biden or anybody else that spoke there. They didn't talk about the violence on our streets at all. So why now? Why in a statement now? I can tell you quite simply. The poll numbers, baby. The polls are showing that American people are upset about what's happening in our streets, and they tend to be blaming the Democrats because American people aren't totally idiots as much as the Democrats would like to think we are, and they're believing their lying eyes, I suppose. So it's all about the poll numbers. That's why Biden's coming out of the bunker, man. It's about the poll numbers. Talk about that more in a minute. I love this next paragraph, so I'm going to break it up as we read it. It's kind of long, so I'm going to give you a break and tell you as I go through it, but it is crazy, man. Listen to this paragraph. The violence has escalated as Trump has seized on the social justice protests as a campaign wedge. What social justice protest? Are we actually having a social justice protest? What exactly are the Portland rioters, for instance, that are trying to burn down the courthouse, that are literally killing people out there, that won't let people pass for a street, that keep the cops out? I mean, what are they actually protesting? Can you tell me? It's been out there for what, like three and a half months now? Every night throwing Molotov cocktails and all kind of stuff. What are they protesting? I can't figure it out. And I can tell you, if you are still socially justice protesting, just go home. Go home. I'm not saying you don't have a right to peacefully protest, but there is no peaceful protest anymore. It is going to be hijacked, especially if in a democratic city, by the hardcore leftist Antifa and Black Lives Matter, because they don't care about black lives. They don't matter to them. All that matters is destruction and destroying the U.S. Constitution and thus the federal government and anything that has anything remotely to do with Donald Trump. So if you're out there trying to peaceful protest, just go home. You're not going to be able to do it. And it's not because of Donald Trump supporters or the federal government. It's because of Antifa and Black Lives Matter have hijacked your protest. It's just a fact. And it breaks my heart that you can't have a peaceful protest, but they're over. And then it says here, attempting to tie Biden to radical elements on the left. That is Donald Trump's campaign strategy, they mean there. That attempting to tie him. He is on the radical left. There's no attempt. Let's just make it straight up. The truth is Joe Biden, regardless of what he may have been 47 years ago when he first got into politics, he's been there 50 years, he is a radical leftist now. He is literally, as Mike Pence, VP, said in his speech, a Trojan horse. There is no doubt about it. And you look who's going to jump out. I love this meme here. It is Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez, Omar, Ilhan Omar. I call him the Twitter twat. Some people call him the squad. Make no mistake about it. If you liked Joe Biden of old, which I don't know why you would, that man doesn't exist anymore. He is literally, I've been calling him an empty shell, but I think VP Pence is on to something here, a Trojan horse, because it's not Biden so much that I worry about. It's who's really the power behind the throne, who is coming with him. And I don't see anything good in any of that. And they're going on with this paragraph. They're eager to shift, talking about Trump supporters or the Trump campaign is eager to shift the political debate, from the rising deaths and economic toll of the pandemic, maybe a plandemic like some of my listeners say. Trump has relentlessly attacked Democratic mayors, governors for failing to quell protest, and he dispatched federal law enforcement authorities into cities to help arrest demonstrators. Well, we heard from Mayor Ted Wheeler of Portland yesterday, man. What a stupid press conference. Don't waste your time looking at it. It was basically just bashing Trump. I mean, this guy, the only reason they're even having protests is the poll numbers are showing that they're losing the argument. But let me just ask you, ladies and gentlemen out there, and you can be a Biden supporter, just let me answer me this. Where are the riots happening? What do all the places where the major riots are happening, what is the one thing they have in common besides Antifa and Black Lives Matter? What do they have in common? They are all controlled by Democratic administrations, and most, if not all of them, for literally decades. Decades, man. It's just unbelievable. So this idea that Donald Trump is attempting to change the subject and make this all about Democratic mayors and governors, all he's doing is telling the truth. The truth sometimes hurts, but it is in Democrat-led cities, period. And like I say, the sad part is most of these have been going on or led by Democrats for years. And what has that gotten you? Like the president said when he went to Detroit back in 2016, what do you got to lose? Well, before the pandemic and all the looting and rioting, you did have a lot to lose in the first 3 years of Donald Trump's presidency. The greatest economy, perhaps in the history of the country, certainly one of the greatest economies that, if you want to single out one group, that Black Americans have ever seen here. So they got a lot to lose now, and the Democrats are dadgum determined to take it away from you, because we can't have people walking away from poor neighborhoods, because after all, the Democratic Party is the party of the poor, so they have to have more poor. So like I've been telling you, the new mantra of the Democratic Party is America sucks. It's always sucked. It sucks for some more than others. And if you vote for Biden and Harris and the rest of the yahoos in the Democratic Party, with the spirit of equity, they will make it suck equally for everyone. That is what the Democrats want us to do. They're not trying to raise us up. They're trying to lower us down to the least common denominator. This week, Trump and Biden will move to address the protests in a more prominent way. Trump on Tuesday is set to travel to Kenosha, Wisconsin. A lot of rioting. It's calmed down since the National Guard went in there. I wonder if there's a connection there. Maybe not. I don't know. White House aide, you figure that out. White House aide said Trump will tour property damage and meet with law enforcement officials, but they did not disclose any plans for the president to meet with Blake's family. Since this article has come out, I've heard that the president is saying that he is willing to meet with the Blake family. A couple of things there. Should he? Should he meet with them? I have mixed feelings about this. I think he genuinely cares. But it is a criminal investigation, and unlike Obama, who just routinely put himself out there, I'm not so sure that presidents should really get in there. You know, his mere presence is an involvement, and so I'm skeptical about that. I get the emotion. I get President Trump's desire to actually express that, but I'm not so sure it's a good idea. Let me know what you think. And then I question whether he should go there or not as far as the city. I'm not buying into the whole thing that's going to increase the violence. It could, but the president has every right and obligation to walk freely in any part of this country. In fact, if it's true, like the mayor and governor of Wisconsin have said, that Trump's presence there will only incite more violence, then that speaks to their lack of ability to control it anywhere, because there should be no place in this country that any American citizen shouldn't go to. Now, I realize be able to go to and feel safe. I realize that is not possible. It wasn't possible before this. But think about this. The president of the United States should be able to go anywhere where Americans, whether it be the United States, our protectorates, our territories, any of that stuff, the president has an obligation to go there. But I do worry about security in general. I am concerned about the president. Well, I'm not about protests or any of that, but you know, somebody might take a pot shot at the guy, or even an organized thing. So I'm hoping not to speak that into existence, but I am very concerned about the security of the president of the United States, especially this one, when you can't even walk out of the White House without getting attacked like Rand Paul Thursday night. And apparently the guy, a Stroker or whatever, I think his name, that started the walk away, him and his partner got attacked as well. You really didn't even hear this on the mainstream media. You had to search for it. And remember that after the president's speech on Thursday night, Rand Paul said that he felt like if the Washington police hadn't intervened, that he and his wife would have been killed on the streets of America in D.C. Killed. I mean, good Lord. What in the world are we coming to? You know, what really got me, there were all kind of highlights of the RNC, but one of the things that stood out to me was on Thursday night, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the lady's name, but her husband was the St. Louis retired police chief as well, that got gunned down on live streaming on Facebook, and his own grandson watched him, didn't know, die in out there in St. Louis. When she said it, I mean, her whole speech was just unbelievable. But at the end, I mean, I was tearing up big time, man. And at the end of her speech, she said that one of the things she couldn't figure out, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, is the callous attitude about life, or lack of, that young people seem to have these days. And it really kind of made me think it is true. And she mentioned video games and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like younger people today, I don't mean to sound like an old curmudgeon, but what is it that they just don't seem to hold life dear, man? I mean, all you got to do is look around it, whether it be the Trump supporter that was gunned down, the young man that gunned down somebody in Kenosha, could be self-defense. I mean, this whole thing, the babies shot in their stroller, like in New York City, and routinely happens in Chicago, killing children. I mean, children killing children, basically. I mean, are we just going to be Lord of the Flies? If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up. But I am concerned about the president's overall security. All right, let's move along here. Billy Bob tells me, as I say, he's my psychic sidekick. He has a Twitter handle, if I didn't tell you, at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. Trying to get a little more active on everything. Really need your help. Don't forget about the giveaway. We're running out of time to get registered for this. Go to the description of our show, John Martin Giveaway. You can win this prize pack. If you want to know what all's in it, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, showed pictures. Remember our sponsor. Not everybody can be a fighter, as I'm always telling you, but everybody can support fighters like me and Billy Bob. Go to our sponsorship link, Big Daddy Unlimited, which is generously donated this prize pack. Check it out. And click on that sponsor link, follow the instructions, and you will help us expand this far and wide. But it said, meanwhile, Biden's aide said the candidate who had maintained a lean campaign schedule, I guess that's one word to put it, will launch a more robust political presence with a speech in southwestern Pennsylvania on Monday to address Trump's handling of the pandemic and his response to the social justice protest. So they say Biden has been having a lean campaign schedule. I didn't even know he had a campaign schedule. He makes statements. Well, why now? Why is Biden coming out of the bunker now? Could it be that their polling shows that he's losing the race? I played a couple videos last week. I want to play them again because these two who are, I think you could call them the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the North, Pelosi and Hillary, they made a couple of statements last week that when you look at them individually, they're BS crazy, but they also, I think, point to something else, that they're getting scared. They're getting afeared, as they say. They're afraid that they're losing this race. And that's why they put out there. And we're going to play them kind of back to back. We're going to start with old Hillary. So prepare yourself, because let me tell you, she didn't do a whole lot of makeup before she made this video. Check it out.
Our audience discuss it on the other side.
They have a couple of scenarios that they're looking toward. One is messing up absentee balloting so that they then get maybe a narrow advantage in the Electoral College on Election Day. Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances, because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is.
That's good. So Hillary Clinton comes out and tells that no matter what the circumstance, in other words, if President Trump wins the election, because obviously you don't have to concede if you win, she's saying that Biden should not concede the election under any circumstances. And yet they worry about Donald Trump for refusing to leave the White House, and they're saying that Biden should not concede even if Trump wins. So this is what they're preparing for. Why would she say that if she wasn't pretty convinced that Biden was going to lose? And then on top of that, check out just like both of these came out last week. This is what Nancy Pelosi had to say about debating whether Joe Biden should debate Donald Trump. Check it out.
I myself, just don't tell anybody I told you this, especially don't tell Joe Biden. I don't think that there should be any debates. I do not think that the President of the United States has comported himself in a way that anybody should, and that has any association with truth, evidence, data, and facts. I wouldn't legitimize a conversation with him, nor a debate in terms of the presidency of the United States. Now, I know that the Biden campaign thinks in a different way about this, but I thought what he did in the 2016 was disgraceful, stalking Hillary Clinton like that. I was disappointed that the president.
As I said last week, Miss Pelosi, let me tell you, there are two women in this world that I would tell you right now, I'd bet money on it, that don't have to worry about being stalked and that would be Hillary Clinton and you, Nancy. Neither one of y'all have to, ain't nobody stalking y'all. Trust me on that. But why would she say this? You know, Hillary's saying that Joe should not concede no matter what. And now Pelosi following that up with saying, oh, that Biden shouldn't debate him. It's because they're losing, and their internal polling is showing that. That is why they're now all of a sudden making statements about violence when they had a whole week to make a statement about the violence in our streets at their convention. And what did we hear? Crickets, baby. That's all, man. They know they are losing. And now is not the time to rest on the laurels, by the way, if you're for President Trump, man. We need to pound the pavement. We need to pound the internet. We need to email people, make phone calls, volunteer in campaigns, donate to campaigns, whichever one you choose. Now is the time to get busy and double down. We are in the home stretch now, and we can win this thing. And on top of that, we need what I call a punishing election. We need a wave election. We need to throw all of these rascals out. We need Nancy Pelosi to become a backbencher. And she talks about debates. I was thinking about this earlier, and I talked about a little bit about it last week. When was the last time she actually had to debate anyone? I doubt it, because I mean, think about this. She is one of the top leaders in the country, and certainly the leader of the Democratic Party, the face to a certain extent of the Democratic Party. And she's never had to campaign outside of her district in San Francisco, and she's third in line for the presidency. If you want to fundamentally change the Constitution, we might need to change that. But I'm not necessarily saying we do. But anyway, in a tweet, Trump referred to Biden as a puppet of crazed leaders on the left who envisioned the Portland chaos as an emblematic of Joe Biden's America. I call it Progresso World. Progresso World is coming. It is at our shores. It is upon us. And let me tell you, even if you're a progressive or if you're a moderate Democrat out there, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like real Progresso World. And it is coming. We're getting a glimpse of it right now. But Trump referred to Biden as a puppet of crazed leaders. Trojan horse, same thing. The tweet also went on to say, this is not what our great country wants, Trump wrote. They want safety and security and do not want to defund our police. Now, hear this next paragraph. And this is where they lie all the time. Right here, it says in this story, Biden has stated that he does not support efforts of some liberal to drastically cut funding of local police department. So Biden supposedly has come out and said he's not in favor of defunding the police, but we have him on video, Billy Bob tells me, actually saying it a slightly different way. And this is not a statement. This is Biden in his own words, which might be why they don't want him to come out of the basement. Check it out.
Invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is
But
that...
do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that we also need to be doing is fundamentally change.
Redirect. What did Harris say? We need to reimagine the police. Now, Biden says we need to redirect some funding. Well, let me ask you, what's the difference between defunding and redirecting? I'll give you an example. Let's say your boss calls you into his office and says, you know, you've really been doing a good job here, but we're not going to defund you. We're not going to cut your pay. We're just going to redirect some of it, Bobby, to Sally over here, or vice versa. We're going to redirect 50% of your pay over to another employee. It's no reflection on you. I'm not for defunding you. I respect what you're doing. And don't look at this as any kind of judgment against you. We're simply redirecting some money from you to Sally. I mean, how dumb do they think we are? Pretty dumb, I guess. But I tell you all the time, take these progressives at their word. Biden is absolutely for, I don't care how you label it, he is for taking, he just said it, significant amounts of money from the police department and putting it somewhere else. Don't get caught up on these words. Take these progressives at their word. All right, let me check my time. We're doing pretty good. I got a couple quick stories I want to get to, one real short. But this one is California moves to consider reparations for slavery. And this is an AP story. California lawmakers are setting up a task force to study and make recommendations for reparations to African Americans, particularly the descendants of slaves, as the nation struggles again with civil rights unrest following the latest shooting of a black man by police. Are we going to do genetic testing on this? You know, we got these things where you can get your ancestry dot whatever and all that kind of stuff. I saw one the other day which says, well, where are we from, Daddy? And he said, we're from here and here and here and here and here and here. and it was kind of crazy. How are we going to, is it only people who are from certain countries? I mean, it opens up a can of worms, man. The state Senate, and this is in California, supported creating the 9-member commission on a bipartisan 33-3 vote. Yeah, real bipartisanship there. The measure returns to the Assembly for a final vote, and they've already approved an aspect of this anyway. So if it comes to the Senate, you know they're going to pass it, man. In California, sure. But bipartisanship, in case you're new to the show, where you been? You're in the right place now. Don't forget our giveaway. Don't forget our sponsor. Check out the links in the description of the show. Bipartisanship, ladies and gentlemen, means Republicans cave every time. I challenge you to tell me where it doesn't. In other words, show me an example where Republicans were for something, but the Democrats were opposed to it, and the Republicans convinced them to come their way. It just don't happen. But the other way, Democrats being for something, Republicans against it, and ultimately Republicans cave, happens all the time. That is the definition of bipartisanship. Check this out. Said Democratic Senator Holly Mitchell of Los Angeles said, let's be clear, chattel slavery. Now keep in mind, California was a free state even during the Civil War. She said chattel slavery, both in California and across our nation, birthed a legacy of racial harm and inequity that continues to impact the conditions of black life in California. So she said, let's be clear. You know the thing you never hear when, and check these articles, that's one thing I try to point out to you, the way the press is subtly biased and sometimes overtly biased, but certainly covertly. She says this, let us be clear, and this puts out this statement about slavery in relation to California, which is total BS. I'm not championing slavery in any way. I'm simply saying that slavery was really not an issue in California. Not black slavery. If any kind of slavery, it was more like indentured servant slavery of Chinese people and Hispanic people and Native Americans. They got a case to be made in California if you believe in reparations. But black Americans really weren't a big issue. There weren't a lot of black Americans prior to the Civil War in California. They just weren't. But here's the term you never hear when a Democrat is speaking, even if they're lying through their teeth. You never hear a term like without evidence. But Donald Trump could say the sun is most likely to come up tomorrow morning, and they would say without evidence. I mean, so that's why I say there is no double standard. There's one standard, and there's a standard conservatives are held to. Democrats say anything they want. She just blurts this out, no challenge whatsoever in this article. But she went on to cite, she said, a disproportionately homeless, listen to this. I want you to listen to this and tell me what this reminds you of. She said, disproportionate, describing what's happening in California, disproportionate homelessness, unemployment, involvement in criminal justice system, lower academic performance, and higher health risk during the coronavirus. That's a perfect description, by the way, of every major city or state that is led by Democrats. Look at that paragraph again. Go back and listen to my voice on it, man. Every single Democratic city and our state led by Democrats is this right. Name me any major city that's not dealing with homeless, unemployment, involvement in the criminal justice system, lower academic performance. That's one thing that President Trump put out there and the Republicans this past week that the Democrats are terrified of, and that is school choice. They don't want your children, it doesn't matter what color, but it certainly affects black Americans in a tremendous way. You talk about reparations. reparations. You want to give reparations that would really benefit Black America? Give them school choice where they can take them out of these government failing schools and put them somewhere where they could actually learn something. What did Biden say? You know, poor kids are just as smart as white kids. I mean, the stuff he says, man, that's why they want statements. But the Democrats should have to pay. Think about this. The Democrats, if anybody should have to pay reparations, it's the Democrats themselves. Their party started slavery, championed slavery, and would not let people vote even after the Civil War ended. It wasn't the Republicans. You know, Frederick Douglass will tell you that. But, of course, they actually tore his statue down because they don't want Black Americans to be proud of anything in this country. But the big lie is that all of this was created by Republicans. The Democrats created. So they tore down Frederick Douglass. Maybe the Democrats should put forward that, hey, if you remember if they want, with evidence, if they want to be, if true, all these crazy statements, that they voluntarily pay reparations to, because Biden's raising all kind of money to African Americans. That would surely swell their ranks, right? I mean, think about that. I bet Democrats would be running for the door, man. Let me check my time. Pretty much out. I got a couple minutes left. Let me just get this really quick. Although California, before the Civil War, was officially a free state, Mitchell, this same lady, listed legal and judicial steps state officials took at a time to support slavery in southern states while repressing blacks. So even though California had nothing to do with it, they still were involved. Maybe it's because how are we going to judge which black people get reparations and which shouldn't? Perhaps Joe Biden actually has made a statement on that. Let's check it out.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want
there
Trump.
You go. You ain't black. So if you vote for Donald Trump, I guess they cut you out of the reparations. Maybe that is. But Bradford went on to say, and we'll close the show with this, she said, I hear far too many people say, well, I didn't own slaves. That was so long ago. She said, well, you inherit wealth. You can inherit the debt that you owe African Americans. So now we're moving from all these crazy notions to the sins of the father. That you are responsible for the sins of your father. Think about this. There's a book out there that has this one chapter called Deuteronomy. You know, I'm just saying, maybe you ought to read it. 24:16. Parents are not to be put to death for their children, nor their children put to death for their parents. Each will die for their own sin. And the congregation said, amen, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to become a country with the sins of the father. I wonder if this carries, like if someone is serving life in prison, 25 to life, but they die after 10 years, does their son or daughter have to come in and serve the other 15 years? I mean, it's the same logic, right? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. Remember in our show description, the giveaway, no obligation, sign on for that. We're giving it away very soon. Our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, I want to thank them for that. Look at the sponsorship link. We've talked about it in depth. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great United States of America. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.